least favorite. Which head coach has won the most AFC North titles? And for perspective, that goes back to 2002.
What's David?
I'm not going, I want to say Brian Billick because it feels like that should be it, but I'm going to go with Mike Tomlin simply by volume alone.
Look how disappointed Hembo is. He got it right. The answer is Mike Tomlin.
That's a great picture, by the way. Why does he look scared? He's won the most. Why is he scared? Surprise.
I don't know what kind of picture is that? We somehow found a picture of Mike Tomlin very startled by something. I'm not sure what.
He's surprised he's won too. That's amazing.
I think Tomlin is stunned that Bobby got it right. We thought that maybe you would guess John Harbaugh, who won the division last night, and it was his fourth AFC North title, and he did it on the skill of his brilliant young quarterback. Let's show it to you again last night. If you're just waking up and joining us, the Ravens and the Jets and Lamar Jackson looking to make history began the game needing 23 rushing yards to break Michael Vick's rushing record as a quarterback, and he got 20 of them real quick, Lewis.
Get him out in space, and he's dangerous now. I'm telling you what, defensive backs, when you play Lamar Jackson, get ready to get rid of wide receiver blocks and make some tackles, please.
Here's the one that breaks the record, this 5-yard game.
Yeah, this is a hard, tough run here. But he takes a good shot here by a linebacker pursuing inside out. He earned it on this play right here for sure.
Later in the first quarter, the record already broken. And on a second down, you see the big hit there. But as I mentioned, the record already broken, and here he goes again.
Look, it's just ridiculous. Whenever you're playing man coverage, you turn your back. This is what he's going to do. He's going to see you running off to try and cover wide receivers. He's going to take off. Remember, this man is 4.3 in the 40.
And maybe faster than that. Look, here he goes again. This is running for 21 this time. Oh, by the way, he threw 5 touchdowns last night, broke the rushing record for a quarterback, and the Ravens, an enormous win, 42-21. And then Tom Brady, while watching the game, responded with this tweet to @Lamar Jackson, a challenge. Me versus Lamar, 40-yard dash on natural grass, but he has to wear rollerblades. Who's buying the pay-per-view? Lamar was mentioned or was told about this during his post-game press conference, and here was his response.
You're probably going to win that race. Rollerblades on grass? Yes. Oh, man. I'm going to see what I can do. Tom still got a little bit in him. I seen him.
So this obviously has just become an extraordinary story. I mean, what's happening here in Baltimore is an extraordinary story. It is a success of overwhelming magnitude. So now let's talk about where it goes from here. They have 2 more games. They are all, for all intents and purposes, locked into the number 1 seed. So you figure you'll be a little bit careful, make sure he's healthy going into the playoffs. Now we're a defense. And now we're going to have to try to beat this team, whether we're Kansas City or New England or Pittsburgh. What's the game plan, Jonathan Vilma, going up against Lamar Jackson?
Well, first I'm going to go back to the only equivalent I played against was Michael Vick with the speed that he has. And we did something completely opposite of what D linemen are being taught to do. You actually would tell them, we told John Abrams, Sean Ellis, when I was with the Jets at the time, go up and then stop. Now stop and get separation from the offensive lineman so that you can start to scramble when Michael Vick starts to scramble. And you see, as John Abrams is able to come around, it's because everyone else was right there creating that flat wall. So the same thing you do with Lamar Jackson. When he played NC State had a bunch of first-rounders all over the place. What did they do? The exact same thing. Create the flat wall. You see no one getting upfield until he starts to commit. Once he commits, that's when the linemen go and commit. Now, if you do that, you can't slow him down, because I'm not talking about stopping him. You can't stop Lamar Jackson. When you slow him down and get him behind the sticks, 2nd and long, 3rd and long, that's when you can now start to have coverages and help out with the defense.
Exactly. But in order to get to what Jonathan's talking about, you do have to slow him down. You have to get him in 3rd and long, which means 1st and 2nd down, you have to have a great plan, which means you have to play this game. You have to play the mind game, meaning this. You better know where you fit against the run. You better know where you fit as far as who the perimeter force players are, who the secondary fill and support players are coming from the secondary. And I can just tell you this, corners, when you go up against this football team, you better be ready to tackle and not just cover. Because if he gets out on the edge, it's going to be up to you to get him on the ground. And if you're just letting him step out of bounds, then you're not deterring him at all from doing it over and over again. You have to make Lamar say, I don't want to run anymore. And that means turn it back into your big guys who are running inside out going, please hold him up for me. Please just stand him up so I can put the boom on him. Because if you don't, You see what happens. His smile gets wider. They start talking about big trust more and more. And next thing you know, they're rolling up the score on you. Simple as that.
And so last night, again, they have run off with practically everything they need to run off with. The next time he plays a really meaningful game is like a good month away when they host a playoff game in Baltimore in the second round. Now let's talk about a team that will not be in the playoffs. It's been a very disappointing year for the Cleveland Browns and for their superstar receiver, Odell Beckham Jr. And now reports have surfaced that the star wideout wants out of Cleveland. Here's OBJ's teammate and close friend Jarvis Landry on that situation.
Well, I think he wants to be here. I know he wants to be here. It's not even about, trying to go somewhere else. I think for him, he's been a leader. He's a guy that comes to work every day. He's a guy that's playing through injuries and all the things that you want out of a player. And inside of this organization, he has a voice. He has responsibility, to himself, to all of us, and to go out there and compete each and every Sunday. And he does that. He doesn't want to leave, and he's not trying to leave.
So, Bobby, you're pretty close to the situation there, a talk show host in Columbus, and you're tight with what's going on inside that Cleveland Browns situation. Is it your expectation that they will trade him this offseason?
No, I've talked to a number of people up there, and I don't think they're going to move on from him. Like, he's been a model citizen up there. You look at all the stuff in New York, and I think a lot of that was just noise. It was a much ado about nothing. And so he's come in, he's worked hard, he's been a good teammate. A lot of the stuff that's been said publicly, like, he hasn't personally said, they've just been rumors. And frankly, he's come out and kind of squashed some of these things. And so when you look at trading, and Lewis can tell you this as a GM, you're trying to trade an asset that's valued high. Like right now, he's not performing really well. He has an expensive contract. And so I don't think there's any incentive for them to try to move on from him this offseason.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lewis.
No, I think people are kind of speculating that he would want to be traded because of how he's been struggling, because of how he hasn't been productive. And they think the old Odell would make a stink and say, look, I want out of here because I'm not the man. And quite honestly, he's giving you none of that. So people are kind of speculating, well, he has to want out of here, right? But everyone keeps saying that he doesn't. And quite honestly, look at it like this. Players don't trade themselves. He can't just go, I'm out of here. I'm just going to go to somewhere else and negotiate a trade. John Dorsey would have to want to trade him. He'd be stupid to try and trade him right now, considering what they gave up to get him and how good he is. Fix the things around him that are keeping him down, that are keeping him from being productive, and see if you can go ahead and build a championship caliber football team. You don't do that by making up problems for people and then shipping off good players like this. I think there's a team already that's pretty close to where we're sitting right now that wishes maybe they didn't ship him off. Okay, because he's a darn good football player, and as he showed you, he's a guy who's maturing. He hasn't said a word all year long, not a word. Other people are speaking for him, Greeny, and I think that's a dangerous thing because you're trying to get inside of his head where he's telling you all along, look, I'm just trying to play ball. And that hats off to him for that.
I know the point you're making. How nice would it be to develop a young quarterback like Daniel Jones if you had a receiver like Odell Beckham? But let me just put it this way. If you're Odell, if you want out of Cleveland, it seems to me there would be two reasons for that. One is the coach.
Sure.
Well, they're going to change that. I think that feels like a fait accompli. The other would be the quarterback. How much of what has gone wrong in Cleveland do you think is the quarterback? Because that's not changing for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think there's no question that it's hard to kind of gauge chemistry from afar when you're not there and you don't see it every day as far as how these guys interact in meetings, how they interact in walkthroughs, practice, and then in games. There's a lot of nuance to quarterback-wide receiver relationships that we aren't privy to. But I will say this. They don't seem to be on the same page. Their play calling is part of that as well. And you're right. They're going to start with the coach. They're going to knock him off first. And then they're going to say, hey, okay, look, Baker, we tried to make this thing kind of set you up for success. You're the one who had this great rapport with Freddie Kitchens a year ago, but that's not working. Now, if we get rid of him and you still don't perform, now it's going to be on you. And look, I have my questions. I think we all have questions about Baker, and some of them have nothing to do with his performance on the field. It's just about his mouth and about how he's always talking, how he's throwing people under the bus and saying things that you don't hear other franchise quarterbacks say.
What do you think?
And so I think Baker Mayfield, like you said, Lewis, is part of the problem. I don't think he is the problem.
Sure.
Like their lack of protection has really been an issue. The fact that they can't push the ball down the field. Like you want big plays from Odell Beckham Jr., you need a clean pocket to be able to sit in and throw the ball down the field. And Baker, he throws his training staff under the bus. I think he did that to try to ingratiate himself into Odell Beckham. Like, come together and say, I've got your back. You've been beat up. I think part of the problem they haven't been on the same page is he was a little injured in camp. He was injured this offseason. He hasn't played a ton. So changes will be made, and then it will all be on Baker to say, hey, you got to get it done now.
You just don't sacrifice other parts of the football operation, man. I mean, in all of my years in the NFL and in sports overall, who are some of your best friends in the football operation? Equipment guys, strength and conditioning guys, trainers. That's not for you to throw them under the bus anyway. That's not your decision. And then when you start doing that kind of thing, I don't hear Brady doing it. I don't hear Rodgers doing it. I don't hear Drew Brees doing it. I don't hear Lamar Jackson do it. They don't do those kind of things. So why are you doing that?
If there's one thing that is clear about the Browns, there's been a lot of talk. Far too much talk. They need a lot less talk. Meanwhile, we will talk as we go on about that man from a backup in Columbus.